aftermath of Hurricane Irma, Tzu Chi volunteers in Canada provide 500 water purifiers to be sent to Sint Maarten. A portrait impacted Mexican representative in Taiwan who has reconnected with its painter Liang Danfeng. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Siri Su. Thank you for joining us. In the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, Tzu Chi volunteers in Canada worked with the Canadian NGO Global Medic to deliver cleaning supplies and water purifiers to impacted areas, including Sint Maarten. After Sint Maarten Tzu Chi volunteer received aid supplies, she expressed gratitude and asked for more water purifiers. Upon learning about the news, Tzu Chi volunteers in Canada prepared 500 water purifiers to be sent to Sint Maarten with the assistance of Global Medic.
58 volunteers take 3 different routes to help the victims impacted by Hurricane Irma as they work together to pack water purifiers and other necessary cleaning supplies. These are the aid supplies that the Tzu Chi volunteer from Sint Maarten requested through her sister who lives in Canada.
Even though my sister's house was damaged over there, she did not forget she's a Tzu Chi volunteer at that time. She insisted on doing some good deeds to help those in need.
In the beginning of September, Global Medic collaborates with Tzu Chi to send aid supplies to the disaster areas impacted by Hurricane Irma, including Sint Maarten.
Brother and sister Tzu Chi and head office, I'm so happy that finally we met Kenny and Rob. Kenny and Rob. I'm so thankful that you bring in all this stuff.
After learning that these aid supplies are still not enough for hurricane victims, Tzu Chi in Canada not only mobilized volunteers to pack the supplies, but also provided funds for buying materials. Tzu Chi Fang's oldest son left the disaster area due to hygiene issues. Knowing that some water purifiers will be sent to Sint Maarten, he brought his families to help out. Everyone worked together to upload the 500 servings of aid supplies to the airplane.
The filter cartridges inside can allow a family of 5 to use it for a month. The filter cartridges are made from ceramics. Now we can see there are 500 servings here. We will deliver them to Sint Maarten in these 2 days.
Although Canada is far away from the affected areas, the volunteers do everything possible to provide assistance for the less fortunate people.
In the United States, the coastal Texas city of Rockport was struck by both Hurricane Harvey and a tornado. Houses were severely damaged, with more than half of the residents being evacuated. Therefore, when city volunteers tried to hold a big aid distribution, they could not find a suitable venue. Fortunately, Fulton Fire Department generously lent a venue for Tzu Chi to hold its distribution. I'm at Rockport, where Hurricane Harvey made landfall. Hurricane Harvey and tornado have devastated this place. Among the 9,000 households in Rockport, only about 6% were not affected, with 32% of the houses totally destroyed or severely damaged.
My home and the hotel that I managed was lost as well, so they're both destroyed.
Today you guys will have the opportunity to...
Just everyone helping. It's just a big deal. You know, people coming to help it just says how good people really are.
The amount of monetary aid might not be big, but it came timely.
You know, the money that y'all have to share with us, it may not actually rebuild my specific home, but what it does do is it offers all of us in the area some hope.
The volunteers faced 2 challenges in organizing this distribution.
Inviting the disaster victims is a big challenge since many of them have not returned after their houses were destroyed. Nevertheless, we need to hand them the monetary aid as soon as possible.
Since half of the residents in the city have evacuated, notifying them about the distribution was hard work. In addition, the houses here have been so severely damaged that finding a distribution venue was hard. Fortunately, Fulton Fire Department has lent a place, but it was outdoors. In this disaster, many first responders are also impacted by the hurricane, and city volunteers have not forgotten them.
All the first responders that were involved, we had several with the navigation district that their houses were totally destroyed.
On the day before the big distribution, Tzu Chi volunteers gave out cash cards to the first responders. This officer recalls the night when the hurricane hit.
Girl that's 11 years old, And at one point with a hurricane, the winds were so strong, it took me and my son just to hold the door closed because the wind was pushing it open and water coming in. So it was scary.
As the affected residents are in desperate need of help, Tzu Chi volunteers are working wholeheartedly to help them rebuild their homes and return to normal life. Hurricane Harvey not only severely impacted Texas of the United States, destroying the homes of the residents, it has also devastated many first responders. Among the 4,000 firefighters at Houston Fire Department, 300 of them are also disaster victims. Since they've been busy working, they haven't had the time to rebuild their own homes. Therefore, Tzu Chi volunteers have gone to hand out cash cards to them. Tzu Chi volunteers have come to Houston Fire Department to hand out Master Zheng Yan's consolation letter and cash cards. This comes with the best wishes of Tzu Chi volunteers worldwide.
We explained to them that the monetary aid actually are donations from different parts of the world. For instance, people in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Ecuador, and the Philippines donated what they can. Upon learning about how Americans are facing difficulties, it comes with their love.
Among the nearly 4,000 firefighters in Houston, 300 have been affected by the hurricane. They've been busy working, not having the time to rebuild their own homes. Therefore, Tzu Chi volunteers have given each person $600 cash cards, easing their worries.
Today was amazing. Hearing that this was happening, it was obviously welcomed assistance. Firefighters are never asking for the help. We're always the one giving it out. So to see, some people coming out to help us out, that's just, the words cannot express.
Thank you. Thank you, President. Thank you very much.
Firefighters, who are usually on the giving end, have also received the much-needed aid, feeling the love and best wishes of Tzu Chi volunteers. In recent years, Vietnam has experienced many man-made disasters related to environmental protection. Formosa Hot Steel was fined $500 million because of sewage discharge. The incident led to stricter emissions control. Also, the Mekong River has seen many dams built, which in the dry season leads to a shortage of fresh water. Furthermore, with global warming, sea levels are rising. Here is our in-depth report.
These are the Tzu Chi tunnels used during the Vietnam War, a labyrinth that was hard for U.S. military forces to sweep the Viet Cong. Some 1/10 of the country saw bombs fall on it.
Did the U.S. military bomb this area? There are some places where it has been bombed. If this area wasn't cleared, none of these trees would grow here.
With the war ending 42 years ago, these past battlefields have now become a tourist attraction. But the remaining war damage is still a lingering shadow for many Vietnamese. Perhaps because of personal experience, when the Vietnamese economy began to develop, environmental issues were one of the first issues to attract attention. In April 2016, Formosa Hot Steel plant shocked many by a sewage discharge incident which killed many fish. Plant operations were suspended, and a fine of $500 million was levied, shocking foreign investors in Vietnam.
You must recognize that you are a foreign company and be very careful what you do. But at the same time, foreign companies need to operate here for a long time, which makes things quite difficult.
Formosa Hot Steel plant wasn't the first case of pollution in Vietnam. In 2009, the Taiwanese food processor discharged untreated wastewater, resulting in a fine of $7.7 million, which was the biggest challenge the company faced in 26 years.
At that time, we experienced rapid growth, and there was no way for us to be in compliance. so we discharge into the water, leading the BOD and COD to be too high, leading some fish to die. We are the first to set up in this river port.
In retrospect, VDAN was quite sincere when it came to rectifying the problem, as it tried to compensate local residents and also invested 1 billion NT dollars in wastewater treatment. It also worked directly with local EPA units.
We have an automatic monitoring system which in 5 minutes transfers information EPA. This is a continual process, so we can't cheat.
Vinden's wastewater treatment has layers of treatment, and before it is discharged into the stream, we take a look at the water and can clearly see this water is very clear.
After learning this lesson about pollution, VDAN is now a model of environmental protection and wastewater treatment. The government requires it to have B-class standards, but the company seeks A-level standards to show that it adheres to the environmental laws and regulations.
Environmental actions must always be in place and done thoroughly. It is a trend, so it must be in place, and regulations will become more and more strict.
Seeing the trend of environmental protection, VDAN is also using what used to be emissions and fermenting them to make organic fertilizer. As the plant also needs electricity, VDAN also built a steam power generation plant.
In 2020, Vietnam's thermal power generation will exceed that of hydroelectric power. While hydropower sounds very environmentally friendly, experts found the opposite because we have to block the river to make dams, causing a lot of ecological problems. And with climate change, there will be less water.
Businesses are concerned about global climate change and impending disasters, as Vietnam is no exception. At the beginning of 2016, Vietnam experienced its worst drought in 90 years. A large amount of farmland in the south-central region became dry, with farmers forced to find another way to survive.
We had a poor harvest because of the drought, and sometimes when the rain comes too early, it also affects the crop.
This rice has turned yellow and there's no grain inside. Some say it is due to global warming and rising sea levels, which leads saltwater intrusion into these fields. The salinity has damaged some 400,000 hectares, with 160,000 hectares of agricultural land which can no longer be farmed.
Cái vấn đề mà xâm nhập mặn và hạn hán là những năm gần đây là từ năm 2016.
In 2016, we were impacted by a drought. Before that, we could get 3 harvests a year. But now, with the seawater entering, we can only get 1 harvest a year.
Trái đất ngày càng nóng lên thì dẫn tới là băng tan, thì nó sẽ làm cho mực nước biển ngày càng dâng, thì nó sẽ tấn công những cái đất liền.
Seawater intrusion has also affected the people's lives, as some remote areas have no water facilities. During dry season, Tzu Chi rushed to install emergency water towers to help 250 poor families.
Last year, because of the drought, there was seawater intrusion and residents could not get clean water. Tzu Chi has been helping us since last year, and this year again they help with these water towers. All the folks are very happy.
According to a Vietnamese official assessment report, if the sea level rises by 1 meter, it will result in more than 1/3 of the Mekong Delta land becoming submerged. Although the drought has been influenced by climate change factors, drought in the lower reaches of the Mekong River in Vietnam is partially caused by dams built by other countries in the upper reaches of the Mekong River for power generation.
Là theo những cái kịch bản của Bộ Tài nguyên Môi trường á, thì mỗi một năm á thì cái mực nước biển sẽ càng ngày càng xâm.
Every year, the seawater intrusion will become more and more serious. Secondly, is the upstream flow of water has decreased because China built a dam in the upper reaches of the Mekong River.
Là từ phía thượng nguồn là dòng sông Mekong á, thì ở phía Trung Quốc và phía Lào là xây nhiều con đập thì sẽ chặn cái dòng nước từ thượng nguồn.
The wide Mekong River is the cradle of life in the Indochina Peninsula. It travels all the way from China to the south, going through 6 countries and affecting the lives of 60 million people. In Vietnam, the Mekong River accounts for 5% of the territory, but has 9 tributaries, creating the Mekong Delta, which is also known as the world's granary.
Nó bắt nguồn là từ cao nguyên
The Mekong River begins in Tibet, and here is the tail section.
In recent years, China has built 6 dams on the upper reaches of the Mekong River to directly impact downstream ecology. Now there are still 15 dams planned or being constructed. Once such work is completed, the Indochina Peninsula could potentially fall into its biggest ecological crisis. After the drought last year, at the end of April this year, Vietnam's rainy season finally came, solving the problem of the drought. However, the battle over the Mekong River water resources is quietly kicking off a war between different countries, such as China and Vietnam. All the countries in this area will need to balance economic development and environmental protection, seeking an important balance that could potentially help everyone and aid the future development of Vietnam.
In Taiwan, the famous painter Liang Danfeng once lived in Denmark 42 years ago. Back then, she met a young man who was confused about life. To encourage this young man, Liang talked with him and sketched a portrait for him. 42 years later, the young man has become the Mexican representative in Taiwan, and the two have reconnected.
Hello. How are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
So nice to see you again.
Great to see you
The
too.
two people waited for 42 years for this warm embrace.
A little bit.
1975年，1975年，德育马丁先生，虽与同游。
The trip and the portrait has connected the two people, coming from Taiwan and Mexico.
作为一个老师，我一向都关怀所有的。
As a teacher, I've always cared about young people. I also enjoy traveling by myself. When I met him, I worry about this young man.
Worry about the people, youngster today.
The young man is the current Mexican representative to Taiwan, Martin Torres. Back in 1985, Torres was only 19 and traveling in Denmark. He was feeling lost when he met Liang, who lived in Denmark.
I drew whenever I feel touched, carrying a sketchbook with me. I drew while he talked. I wrote down the entire story as my best wishes for him.
That I kept as a nice memory of this lady that I met when I was traveling on my way to a place where I was going to be studying for a year. And I had it with me when I was a student. I came back to Mexico, and then I started traveling when I started working, and I always had it with me.
Martin Torres has kept a simple sketch for 42 years. Liang's talk back then also made a huge impact on him.
She told me, you think too much. Don't think that much. It has helped me realize that I shouldn't be thinking that much all the time.
The most important thing is to grow and become strong, so you can become a supporting pillar in a society. After you become somebody in a society, you can then influence other young people.
After coming to work in Taiwan, Torres has been looking for this female painter. His only clue was the signature on the sketch.
Liang Danfeng. Yeah. And that was the key for me to quite honestly, when I saw that she was so famous, I was even happier because I said, oh, this is very valuable.
After all these years, Torres has carried out his vow to serve his country. He has hung a gift from Liang for his inauguration in his office. Since the encounter in Denmark, the two people have built up a deep and precious friendship. To promote vegetarianism, Tzu Chi volunteers in Tzu Chi in central Taiwan took to the streets around the Taichung train station. They hope to gather enough signatures to declare January 11th as the World Ethical Eating Day.
Close to 100 Tzu Chi volunteers and Tzu Chis gathered at Taichung train station to promote vegetarianism.
你可以做到每一天的每一餐，或者是一个月的某一天。
The simplest way to reduce global warming is through vegetarianism. The volunteers asked the general public to sign to turn January 11th as a World Ethical Eating Day.
一个人一天吃素，爱地球，你今天不能吃肉哦。
要吃菜。
菜可以怎么样？
让身体健康，环保地球。
110万的人来这一天来响应我们出行111的活动。哇，全家人都响应哦，感恩哦。
The volunteers and the Tzu Chis go into the train station and also nearby shops to promote it.
We go amongst people in stores because we hope more people can see people like me and those young people doing a meaningful thing together.
When it gets hot, I'll feel it's toiling. But when I know I can get more people to understand and support vegetarianism and to reduce global warming, it doesn't become toiling.
They chose to hold this event at a crowded Taichung train station, so they also want to appreciate the support from the Taiwan Railway.
It's nice that they set themselves as example and influence their families or friends to conduct such a meaningful event.
If a person can eat 15 vegetarian meals, it is like planting one sapling. Every person has responsibility to save the earth.
Also in an effort to promote vegetarianism, but in the Philippines. In the 7th Lunar Month, Tzu Chi Philippines chapter has implemented a project to provide vegetarian lunches for 21 days in Greater Manila. More than 900 people participated in the project. Tzu Chi volunteers not only prepared delicious and healthy vegetarian lunches, but also delivered them to the residents. To promote vegetarianism, Tzu Chi volunteers have been busy working in the kitchen since the morning. For 21 days, the volunteers cook and deliver lunches to the project participants every day.
Eating vegetarian is really good for the body. We feel parang healthier ba? Jose. Kaya wala encourage everyone to try to become vegetarian.
Wow, very good. Thank you, thank you.
Although I have to go pack lunches early in the morning, when I see how grateful the participants are when they receive the food, I feel happy too. The volunteers deliver the lunches because they want to get a feedback from the participants. In addition, this is the best opportunity to get closer to the community residents. At the school, a total of 30 staff members have participated in the project.
It's so exciting to await the food every day because it's so colorful and the presentation is so nice.
Yeah.
Thank you to the people behind this project because we really appreciate your efforts.
The science teacher has been teaching about global warming and environmental issues. Therefore, she seizes the occasion to teach about the benefits of vegetarianism.
It's one way of teaching students that not to kill animals, but instead you plant more vegetables, plants.
Bawal po tayo mag-harm any sentient being kahit po.
We cannot hurt any living beings. If we adopt a vegetarian diet, we won't be killing innocent animals for the sake of eating delicious food.
Harm ng kahit na anong sentient being.
As the project participants taste the delicious vegetarian food prepared by the volunteers, they're also benefiting their own health and the environment. In Malaysia, to raise funds for Tzu Chi's International School in Kuala Lumpur, an entrepreneur has donated his collection of Master Boyan's calligraphy and paintings to be sold at a charity sale. We'll leave you with these images at the end of our program. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.